Strasbourg are one of France's biggest and most historical clubs, but they were down in the 5th tier in amateur football as recently as 2011 after going bankrupt. They have enjoyed this steady and very, very impressive rise under the presidency of Marc Keller, and today, Le Racing stand on the cusp of history. They've qualified for the first semi-final in their history, beating Mainz 4-0 at the Menot on Thursday night. They're playing Nice as well this coming Wednesday evening in the semi-final of the Coupe de France. So our question is, can Strasbourg become just the 3rd team in the history of French football to win a European competition? It is time for Le Dossier. Andy, I'm going to start by asking you what it was like on Thursday night. You were at the Stade de la Menot, which is a wonderful stadium these days, full of colour, full of atmosphere and passion. Strasbourg were 2-0 down from the first leg against Mainz, but what a performance! 4-0. They could have scored more than that. What was it? What was it like?
Yeah, it was great. I suppose before the game, I was quite sceptical about Strasbourg's chances because Mainz were the better team in the first leg and were comfortable 2-0 winners, perhaps could have even won by a bigger margin. And there was a lot of Mainz fans in Strasbourg. There was far more Mainz fans than just the corner of the stadium, kind of the official away section. They were all over the ground. You really got the sense that it was a huge occasion for them, and that the Strasbourg fans hadn't completely sold out the stadium. I mean, not far off it, but it was, there were a lot of pockets of red around the ground, a lot of noise from the German fans. But at the same time, the strike the silent protest we've seen from the Strasbourg fans at the start of games throughout the season, where they don't make any noise in the first 15 minutes, at least the cop, which is to the left when you're seeing the game on TV, which they stay silent. They make most of the noise usually, but they stay silent at the start of games. That wasn't quite as pronounced as usual. Some parts of that stand were silent at the beginning of the game, but not all of them. So it was much more a kind of sense of communion than there perhaps has been at other Strasbourg games this season. I think in general, people really sensed that it was a huge occasion for the club. It was their first European quarter-final in 46 years, I think, 45 years, and now they're into their first ever semi-final. Yeah, great occasion. I mean, they're a city in general. It's a city that gets behind the football club. The real passion for Strasbourg in the city, kind of bit more leaning towards the German football culture there naturally because it's right on the German border, and the German football culture is very different to the typical French football culture. And is great, and I think it's fantastic. It made for a great atmosphere. They obviously got the goals at crucial points in that game because they sort of had to ride not a storm early in the match, but they were not brilliant in the first 20 minutes. Suddenly Diego Moreira had this incredible overhead kick which nearly brought the house down, and then they scored just after that. Then they get a second goal, and you sort of think they're going to push on from there. Then they have a penalty in the second half, which is saved, and you think, how are they going to react to this? Maybe Mainz will get a lift and go on to win the game, but they don't. They keep going. They score a third and a fourth, and it ends up being one of... I mean, I don't want to sort of go too over the top here because, you might say it's only the Conference League. It's not quite the same. Mainz are kind of a mid-table German club, but one of the great French comebacks in European competition in recent times, to do that in those circumstances and to make it through to semi-final, and suddenly they're really dreaming of winning a European trophy, as you say. And if they do win it, it would not be something to be underestimated as an achievement. It's a competition which we've seen English clubs win in recent times. We've seen Roma win. We've seen big names win that trophy, and for Strasbourg it would be something huge. So they're very close, and it's fantastic night and a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, you're right, though. It shouldn't be sort of downplayed. I saw an interview with Ben Chilwell after the game where the journalist said, Ben, you've won the Champions League in your career. Where does this kind of stand with respect to that? And, Chilwell certainly didn't smirk like you are at the moment, Andy. He said, look...
I asked him the same question. Maybe it was my interview. Yeah.
Maybe it was. But, he was like, yeah, this is unbelievable. Obviously, winning the Champions League is the summit of a sort of club career, but this is right up there. You talk about the atmosphere. I would say you talk about the German culture as well. It's basically sausages and beer, isn't it? Isn't that like the key formula to get an amazing atmosphere at football? And they've got that big kind of area just kind of adjacent to the main stand where they've got lots of bars and lots of space. And Mark Keller, the president, he's always there having. I don't know how he's so sort of slim because he's always eating sausages before the game.
Well, if I could just say that the thing that I've enjoyed doing the last couple of times I've been to Strasbourg, I don't know if you've been there this season, Matt, but they have in the concourse in the main stand, the new main stand, they've got this. They make the tarte flambée, the Flammekuchen. I suppose you'd say it's like a pizza, isn't it? But a very, very thin crust. And you get a huge queue sort of lining up to get them before the game. So the last couple of times I've been to Strasbourg, I've got them before the game. So not sausage, but still very good pre-match or halftime snacks, which I recommend.
Tarte flambé is pretty high on the calorie count as well.
Apologies to any German listeners for suggesting that their entire culture boils down to sausages and beer. I know that wasn't your exact meaning, Matt. I thought I'd just clarify that.
Thank you, Tom. Tom, I'm going to come to you now. Like Andy mentioned, the boycotting that we've been seeing throughout the season, with sections of the supporters and notably the ultras unhappy with the Blueco multi-club model. It's interesting. I think in the last few months even, we've talked a lot less about that. We've had the sort of Emega controversy when the club captain posed in his Chelsea shirt. We had Liam Rosenior being taken mid-season, if you like, to join the big brother Chelsea. Despite all of that, Gary O'Neill's come in. I don't think anyone was overly excited about his appointment, but he really does seem to have done a good job of keeping the club moving in the right direction, adding a few little touches here and there. And I think, I wanted to say, like, despite this sort of adversity, if you like, losing their coach, losing their top scorer, Joaquin Panicelli, to a serious injury, they've maintained this feel-good factor and these performances. And that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's vital for Blueco, for the Blueco project, for Strasbourg to be able to weather these things that they've had to contend with this season. So many controversies. Emmanuel Emega posing with the Chelsea shirt on the day that his move there was announced at the end of the season. The departure of Liam Rosenior mid-season for Chelsea. Mamadou Sarr being recalled from his loan by Chelsea. You can understand why Strasbourg fans were up in arms about each of these things in isolation, and this collective sense that their club has just become a kind of vessel for Chelsea. And so it was crucial that Strasbourg continued to succeed on the pitch in spite of all that. They've obviously fallen off the pace in Liga. And if they don't go all the way in the Conference League and they don't win the Coupe de France, they may regret their inability to keep pace with the other contenders in the domestic championship. But generally speaking, the fact that they've managed to keep things on an even keel in spite of all the upheaval suggests that, this model, this way of working with Chelsea can work long term. And even though Chelsea have the ability to cherry pick the centre forward and captain, to pick the manager mid-season, to recall a key central defender from loan, and for Strasbourg to continue to succeed, I think that's very important for the current owners. And as Andy said about the as they call it, the grève d'encouragement, the encouragement strike at the start of Strasbourg's matches being slightly less noticeable. I mean, I think it speaks to this pressure point that we now find ourselves at, and it is so hard for those fans, and I have enormous sympathy for them, the fans who are protesting, who don't want to see their club, their club's identity tarnished as they see it, but who have now got a European semi-final to look forward to, a Coupe de France semi-final to look forward to, a young, exciting team who still play fantastic football. It puts them in a really difficult position. So yeah, again, further proof that Strasbourg are just a fascinating case study in terms of the direction that modern football is heading in.
Yeah, I think I'm going on an encouragement strike with my children this week because they're on holiday, and it doesn't matter how many times I've asked them to tidy their room. It just doesn't happen. But I do like that term, and it's not something that really exists, I'd say, in English football, but it does exist a little bit in my household. I think it's interesting, though, what you say about the Blueco model, and we've seen sort of Chelsea, you mentioned Mamadou Sarr, who I'd sort of forgotten about as well. So Chelsea are like cherry picking Strasbourg's best players. And yet I feel this kind of mirrors a little bit what is so good, or certainly one of the big strengths of Ligue 1, because on a bigger scale, this is what we're seeing in Ligue 1. You get Premier League and, the big teams in Europe picking the best talent from Ligue 1, but Ligue 1 seems to keep on finding even more exciting talent, even younger talent. And in my sort of ideal world, I'm not quite sure if this can happen, but, if Strasbourg win the conference, they go into the Europa League. If they do that, is that right, Andy? And Chelsea sort of mess up the end of their season. They play each other, if UEFA sanction it, and Strasbourg beat them, because that would just be so funny. Well, obviously not for Chelsea, but, we'll keep taking your best players, but I do think Strasbourg could give Chelsea a game at the moment. And Andy, I want to sort of ask you about some of these players, because the obvious example would be Emega being taken and Panicelli being signed from the Spanish second tier, and arguably, certainly in my eyes, looking like the better of the two. But we got to give Emega credit. Came back, didn't he, from his injury? Came on Thursday, missed his penalty, but scored a good goal, and certainly leads the celebrations very well. But he's one of a cluster of really good footballers.
Yeah, I think we need to be a bit careful about saying that Panicelli's definitely better than Emega. I mean, obviously he's had an incredible impact. Panicelli.
That was just my view.
Yeah. But I mean, Emega has been injured, to be fair, for much of the season.
Yeah.
And he was the top scorer in each of the last two seasons. He is a very good player, and I think he showed tremendous character to, as you said, he had that penalty saved, but he sort of bounced back from that and scored a goal soon after. He is a very good player, and Strasbourg have a squad of very exciting young players, as we've discussed several times, I think, on this podcast. Obviously, we mentioned Valentin Barco recently is kind of the epitome of that, the energy and dynamism that he brings in midfield, but they have that throughout the side. Abdul Ouattara is a very, very good player, but not exactly a regular starter. Scored in the opening goal against Mainz, and the right back popping up in the penalty box, playing because Guéladoué wasn't available. Guéladoué is a very good player. I saw some report in L'Équipe recently suggesting that had Guéladoué not committed his international future career to Côte d'Ivoire, he might have been a contender for the France squad, like his brother Désiré is. So he's a very good player. There's so many examples, They have this policy of signing young players, which has led to this team almost exclusively under-23 team on the pitch, the exception being Ben Chilwell, who's the veteran. I mean, I mentioned Ben Chilwell before. The couple of times I've been at Strasbourg for the Conference League games this season, I've spoken to Ben Chilwell. He really enjoys, I think, having that role of being the veteran, the sort of the old head in the squad, with that experience of having played in the Champions League final, almost being like a spokesman for the squad, because he's able to he's so articulate as well, Ben Chilwell, And it is a young squad, but they're very well managed. They're a well-structured club. You get the sense that they're building towards bigger things, but obviously with that caveat, that what the fans are not happy about, that they can't be bigger than Chelsea, that everything seems to be leaning towards, well, somebody does well and off they go to Chelsea. And that is so much a bigger issue than this current team being in the semi-final of two different cup competitions. I think it'd be nice if the fans, if everybody could just take a step back a little bit, just for now, from the ownership issue, and try to enjoy these cup runs and see if they can go all the way, because they have a genuine chance of winning both of them.
And I think we should also credit the work that Gary O'Neill has done since he came in. Not an ideal situation to be coming in as the successor to a coach who was extremely popular and had a lot of success. And now I think as the weeks progress, we're getting a sense of what it is that O'Neill's trying to do. Hasn't made a huge amount of changes. The starting 11 has become more settled. Tactically, there's a lot less variation. There was always that slight sense of anticipation before Liam Rosenior named his starting 11. Was it going to be a back three? Was it going to be a back five? We've seen diamond midfields. We've seen players used in multiple roles. We've not really seen that under O'Neill. Generally speaking, when everyone's fit, who's going to be playing. Valentin Barco, Samir El Mourabet, midfield 2. Martial Godot starts pretty much every game on the left flank. I guess one of the innovations has been moving Diego Moreira onto the right wing. We'd previously seen him playing left wing back, centre mid, pretty much everywhere. He's been brilliant. We've been seeing a lot more of Sebastian Nanasi, Swedish playmaker in recent weeks. He had injury problems over the first part of the season. And, the back four was reasonably settled as well. And again, I guess another innovation has been that in the absence of Panicelli and with Omega not always being available due to injury himself, still working his way back in, this decision to use Julio Enciso as a false 9, and that's worked really well. I mean, Enciso was brilliant in the game against Mainz and has very, very frequently showed that he can shine in that role. I guess another sort of Rosenior's trademark was the all-pitch press. That has been dialed down a little bit. So it feels like he's kind of tried to build on what Rosenior did by keeping the stuff that worked and maybe just dialing things down a little bit. I mean, there's still that same desire to build up from the back. And unfortunately, we saw the limitations of that in the defeat against Rennes yesterday, because with a completely second-string team, Strasbourg tried to play the same kind of football, building up from Mike Penders in goal, and Rennes turned the ball over in dangerous areas so many times. So I guess there's perhaps some work to do on that front. But yeah, generally speaking, I think it's been a pretty successful start to life at Strasbourg for O'Neill. And it's kind of curious to think that having started life under Liam Rosenior, Strasbourg could end the season. They could win the Coupe de France. They could win the Conference League, and this is all under a coach who came in January, or was it even February? Mid-season in any case.
Yeah, and he looks to be loving it, doesn't he, Gary O'Neill? I should say he seems to have sort of really adapted well to Ligue 1 McDonald's. Andy, you were there. Did you see him in McDonald's? There was a video doing the rounds on social media of Gary O'Neill in the local McDonald's next to the Stade de la Méno after the game, sort of posing for selfies as he tried to order his Big Mac or whatever.
No, I didn't see him, but I'm quite surprised that Gary O'Neill would do that. I mean, he strikes me as one of these young coaches who really takes care of his own body. He looks in tremendous shape. He's got incredible teeth. Not that can stop you having a nice trip to McDonald's, but I'm quite surprised that I would have thought Gary O'Neill would be like straight home, straight to bed, up again at 6 a.m, cold shower, run and back on the training ground, rather than heading for a big
He let himself loose.
Yeah,
let himself go. But I think there's probably not that much open around there as well. If you are.
No, I know that from experience. Yeah,
great advert for McDonald's. Great advert for Ligue 1 as well. I mean, it's ticking all the boxes.
Amazing. So Strasbourg, they've got a very busy schedule. There may be a few more trips to McDonald's to come because they've got 9 games in 27 days. You talk about those semi-finals being winnable. They play Nice on Wednesday at the Meno, so great opportunity to reach the final. They play Rayo Vallecano, who I admit I don't know a huge amount about. They're 13th in La Liga. They haven't beaten any big names, as far as I can tell, on their way to the semi-finals, which perhaps says something about the Europa Conference League. But I don't want to, turn my nose up at it. Is that the expression? Because I do think it's a great competition for teams that maybe wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity. So great chance for them. They play the second leg at the Meno as well, and we wish Gary O'Neill and his players all the best for that.